I was surprised, the bitterness all of a sudden, and then you think of the memories.
Yeah.
It helped me overcome that bitterness. And then it was a day, I was relieved of my job.
Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we need to talk about this big situation surrounding Joel Quenneville and the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, Joel Quenneville came out recently in an interview and basically spoke out against the Chicago Blackhawks and gave us great detail on the situation leading up to his sudden firing in 2018 from Chicago. And there are some really big details that we did not know previously that actually paint a pretty bad light on the Chicago Blackhawks. So what is going on with Joel Quenneville and the Chicago Blackhawks, and what did this interview contain? Watch till the end for all the info and all the details, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 60% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, this channel is the place to be. Now, the Chicago Blackhawks organization is already under fire a lot recently for very good reason, but this Joel Quenneville situation puts even more pressure on top of that, and in my opinion, it was super disrespectful how this whole situation went down, and Joel Quenneville explains it in great detail. Now, I'm going to share you guys the clip so you can get the full context, so we can discuss it in detail and discuss all the news in today's video.
What about the day you found out it was over?
Well, I was surprised, the bitterness all of a sudden, and then you think of the memories. It helped me overcome that bitterness. Remember, like it was yesterday, because we played Calgary that day, and we lose the game. We weren't supposed to come home that night after the game. They changed plans on us as opposed to coming back Sunday, and we came back right after. And then we got home. I got home around 4:30, 5 o'clock. We got a phone call from Dylan and hysterics, and that was the morning we found Connor. And that was a tough day. And Tuesday, I think it was, when we went in, and then it was a day, I was relieved of my job.
Now, to also give some much needed context onto this clip, the person that Joel Quenneville is talking about, Connor, was his nephew who tragically passed away the day before Joel Quenneville was eventually fired. And Joel Quenneville explains this whole process, how he unfortunately heard of the losses after a game and would be fired the next day. And Barstool Chief, one of the people that were interviewing Joel Quenneville at this current time, also had a quote in an interesting article here that I thought was fascinating and also pretty disheartening, and he said this: Joel's nephew, who had lived with him previously, is like a second son to Joel, and tragically passes away. The organization knew this, decided to fire him in the moment anyways. Look, I understand that the organization has to do what is best for the team, but that's not what they did. They did what is best for themselves as people. They needed a culprit for what was happening to their once great dynasty, and Joel and others molded. They have the Colleton press conference as Joel is on his way to funeral services, and they have the audacity to make this statement. And this just puts so much more context, but so much more just anger in myself for this whole situation. So not only was Joel Quenneville fired the day after his nephew died, who he was super close to, not only did they do that, they knew that that was a situation, they still fired him, and not only did that happen, they also had his replacement press conference while the funeral service was going on with Joel Quenneville as well. So all of this combining together just makes a terrible situation for Joel Quenneville, and a guy who's put so much into the Chicago organization, a guy who's won 3 cups there, and at that time, even 2018, didn't see a ton of success at that moment recently, but gave the Chicago Blackhawks their best period of success of all time. Yet to do that firing, to fire him right after his nephew died, and to have all this disrespect on top of it, I think it just shows the Chicago Blackhawks organization just not caring too much about the people that molded their franchise, and especially for guys like Stan Bowman. I don't know how this situation is allowed to happen, and guys like Stan Bowman are allowed to keep their job. For me, with a coach that was so influential on that team and that franchise, to be let go so disrespectfully, it's absolutely embarrassing, and another embarrassing act upon so many embarrassing acts for this trash Blackhawks franchise. Now, in that same article, there was another interesting quote that I thought, again, was just crazy to me. Now, he said this. Now, I don't know this is for 100% fact, but I think Stan tried to have Joel fired immediately after the 2017-2018 season. He wanted him fired, and I believed he wanted Jim Montgomery from the University of Denver. John McDonough vetoed Stan at the last minute. So, Stan Bowman, we now pretty much get confirmation, and we pretty much knew this at the time too, but now we pretty much get official confirmation that Stan Bowman just didn't want Joel Quenneville there as the head coach. I mean, this pretty much sums it all up. Of course, he wouldn't be able to fire him while he was having great Stanley Cup winning success, but when there was an opportunity with Joel Quenneville when the team wasn't great, he took the opportunity and fired Joel Quenneville, even if it meant firing him right after his dear nephew passed away. That to me is just incredibly shameful on Stan Bowman, not even just with the whole sexual assault allegations going on right now, but even just this, like everything that's come together just makes Stan Bowman look and feel like a GM that just doesn't care whatsoever around the people that's around him, and just wants to look out for himself and his own job security. Because for me, at least, even though Quenneville wasn't doing an elite job as the Blackhawks coach at that point, he wasn't nearly the source of the problem with Chicago. That was Stan Bowman's problem that he cultivated and created for John Quenneville to be the scapegoat of. To me, that's horribly horrific. And to me, when it comes to Stan Bowman, he created a problem, tried to solve it by firing the head coach and putting accountability off himself, and all that's happened is just disrespect and missing the playoffs since then. What have the Chicago Blackhawks done since they fired Quenneville, or even since Stan Bowman, or even since the 3 cup wins really with Stan Bowman? Nothing at all with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, to me personally, how I kind of see the situation unfolding is that I think Stan Bowman back in 2018 at least was putting Joel Quenneville in a position to fail. Chief makes a great point in this article that the big acquisitions by Bowman in the offseason, when he had a decent amount of cap space, by the way, was Brandon Manning and Chris Kunitz. That's not a roster with Chicago that is going to be a playoff contender. And even Joel Quenneville can't make that roster magically become a contender overnight. Unless you're Barry Trotz, it's just not happening. And since Joel Quenneville has been fired, he's went to Florida and has turned that team and that franchise into something formidable and something to be proud of. But I keep going back to the reasoning of this firing, and in every single way, it still doesn't make sense. Even if you were going to fire him for hockey reasons, Joel Quenneville is not the guy that you fire. It is Stan Bowman every single time. Yet Stan Bowman has been given chance after chance and has still put a team that cannot compete, at least so far from what we've seen. But even hockey-wise, even just in terms of just pure hockey play, Joel Quenneville is one of the best coaches in the world now, and is still up to that level with the Florida Panthers. To me, with Chicago, it was a no-brainer from day one. Stan Bowman is the reason you were bad. Stan Bowman is the reason you were crap. And for me, just in terms of pure hockey ways, it doesn't make sense. But then you add on the pure fact that the Blackhawks and Stan Bowman knew that Joel Quenneville's dear nephew died the day before they were going to fire him. If you're Chicago, you at least, if you're a somewhat respectable franchise, which the Blackhawks obviously are not, if you were somewhat respectable, you would give at least some time for Quenneville to grieve, to actually take this whole situation in, yet you fire him the next day? It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and the only way it would make sense is if Stan Bowman is completely selfish, is completely looking out for himself, which from these stories is how I see it actually being the case. I really don't see how, as a GM, how you treat the coach that's brought you all the success this poorly. And Chicago, also, the ownership not doing anything about it, letting the situation go and keeping Stan Bowman. To me, it's just catastrophic, and I really don't get it. But also, it's not just a Stan Bowman thing. Like, this was run through the entire management and the whole ownership. If you were gonna fire your big 3-time Stanley Cup champion coach, it's gonna go through the entire ownership before it gets approved, and it went through every single one of them. And they knew exactly what happened the day before. That is the worst thing. And to me, both hockey-wise and just relationship-wise, it's disastrous that any NHL franchise would even come close to something like this, yet the Blackhawks have done this. And I don't get it. I really don't. If that front office and ownership even cared about their 3-time Stanley Cup winning coach, they would have given him a proper end-off and would have given him the time to grieve his own nephew's passing. That's what they would have done. Instead, they did the exact opposite, fired Joel Quenneville, basically just shipped him off right after he was trying to grieve during his funeral. They've had the press conference of Jeremy Colleton. Everything together just tells me this Blackhawks franchise is despicable. Don't give them your respect. And don't let them just do the same things over and over again. I still don't get how Stan Bowman is still an NHL GM after all of this. I mean, hockey preaches being respectful and treating everyone kindly and everything. Yet, when you have a guy like Joel Quenneville who's so respected getting disrespected like this, how is a normal, like, average Joe a coach supposed to get respected if Joel Quenneville can't even get respected like he should? To me, it's an absolute travesty, and I hope the Blackhawks suck next year. I hope Stan Bowman never reaches the NHL again after he hopefully gets fired this next year, and I hope the Blackhawks as a franchise are terrible these next few years. I just think this is what they deserve. It's what they should probably get, and I hope Joel Quenneville wins the Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers this next year, which, let's be honest, will probably happen. But I just really wanted to talk about this situation because I haven't heard really anybody else talking about it, and to me it's one of the bigger stories in hockey right now, just how such a well-respected coach can have this happen to him. And it's because the Chicago Blackhawks are the Chicago Blackhawks, and I'm just so disgusted. And you guys know already, the Blackhawks are my least favorite team by far, and they've been that way for a long time. But just everything that's come out about this organization pretty much confirms to me just what I've known already. And I haven't known about these situations before, but I just never gotten a great vibe from the Chicago Blackhawks front office, especially Stan Bowman. I've never liked him, and all this different stuff coming out is just horrible, just absolutely horrible. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this whole situation. What do you think about Joel Quenneville being fired like he was? What do you think about the Chicago Blackhawks organization? What do you think about Stan Bowman in this situation? Let me know all your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, hit that notification bell if you've not already. Helps the channel a ton, and every little bit is appreciated. And if you are a hockey fan, we'd love to have you in the Grav Gang covering stories like this. Make sure you share this video with your friends as well. Get it out there and get this news out there to any Blackhawks fans or any hockey fans you might know. And click on this card for all of my hockey, actually, you know what? Hockey prospects talk right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thank you so much for watching. I hope Stan Bowman gets fired to oblivion. And I will see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.